Welcome to the Tahana Society Expert Talks. My name is Valerie Kramis, and this talk is part of our programming inside the Altos Tahona Society app. For those joining us for the first time, Tahona Society is a global community created to support and elevate hospitality professionals through education, mentorship, resources, and meaningful connections. These conversations are designed to connect our community with the people, stories, and ideas shaping the future of hospitality. And today's session is a very special one. Our guest, Steve Olson, has spent more than 4 decades helping shape how the world understands agave spirits, hospitality, and storytelling with the drinks industry. As co-founder of Del Maguey, he has helped introduce traditional mezcal to the global bar community and build appreciation for artisanal agave spirits around the world. He's also co-founder of Beverage Alcohol Resource, one of the industry's leading beverage education programs, and has mentored generations of bartenders and hospitality professionals through his career. For many people in our industry, Steve has played an important role in expanding the global understanding of mezcal, not just a spirit, but as a culture, a craft, and a connection to people and place. Today, we'll explore his journey, the evolution of mezcal, lessons from building iconic brands, and his perspective on where hospitality and our industry are heading next. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Steve, for joining the Tahana Society community today. Please welcome Steve Olson. How are you, Steve?
I'm great. Thank you so much. It's truly an honor to be here. There's nothing probably that I love more than being able to communicate with my community. And I love sharing because that's really what this is all about. And I know we're going to talk about that a lot today. But to me, that's what drives me. And I think a lot of people that are probably listening in is the idea of sharing and mentoring and learning everything that we possibly can, but then disseminating that information. How do I figure out exactly what each server needs, what the guest needs, what people really need to understand? So it's a joy and an honor to take the time and be here with the group. So I have to give a shout out to Dre and to Henry, of course, because not only was Henry a good friend and Dre is a good friend, but they also, as you'll hear a little bit later as I tell the story, um, they may very well have been the first organized bartender trip ever to come to Mezcal. We we traveled together in Mexico a couple of times, and they kept hearing about Oaxaca and what we were doing down there. And finally, they just said, "We're coming." Anyway, that's for later, I guess. But
That's
we're
amazing.
kindred spirits, that's for sure. And I adore Dre, and we miss Henry deeply.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve, for this time. So, Steve, you've spent more than 4 decades helping shape the beverage industry across categories, including wine, gin, agave spirits. And looking back, what first drew you into the world of hospitality and what made you stay?
Okay, first of all, you're just making me feel really old right now. And I could probably spend our entire hour just on this because this is really what it's all about. But I have, as many people on this call probably do, a very sick disease, a need inside of me. I live to make people happy. And I'm really not happy unless I'm making people happy. So hospitality became an easy call for me, but it wasn't at the beginning. I actually, believe it or not, and this makes perfect sense if you look at it, I started off as a soda jerk when I was 12 years old. So that's actually 5 decades now, believe it or not, if you include all of that. I opened my first restaurant at the age of 15, and I was a manager by the time I was 16. And I wrote my first wine list. Uh-oh, what's that? Oh, we're not ready for that yet. We're way ahead. I'm sorry, that's my bad. Don't look, anyone. Just, I was glancing through my slides. You're going to see all this later, I promise you. We got to go
Yeah,
back to
no
it.
worries.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, now you can put it up, and I'll show you some cool images if you while I'm talking. So you don't have to do the talking head things. If you guys don't mind, I put together some beautiful images to show you, and we're going to tell some stories through the images. But um, when I was 19 years old and I'd lied about my age to get my job to be able to serve alcohol and work in a restaurant business while I was trying to put myself through college, out of need, necessity, I wrote my first wine list because we needed to make more money, and I knew somehow that intuitively that that was how I could make more money because I'd worked in restaurants that had expensive wine, and we didn't, and that was really where it took off. But I was 23, I believe, 24. I was running this beautiful. Well, in those days it was Mobile 5 star. Now it's Forbes, right? But it was. Grand award winner from the Wine Spectator. I mean, a major, major wine restaurant destination. And I was working in television full time. So, everybody knows that story. So you're closing at, 2 or 3, and God, you have to have a drink to come down and relax. And then oftentimes I'd be on a morning shoot at like 5 a.m., or I'd be in the editing room, or I'd have to go and do a live report because I did the news, right? So it's like, I never slept ever. And then afterwards I go back to work, and I closed every night because that way I could work during the day on TV. But that also meant, perpetuating this crazy schedule. I still, by the way, am up late every single night. But at one point I realized I couldn't keep doing both, and I had to make a decision. I was forced. It wasn't like I was so smart. I had to. I'd die. And it was the easiest decision I've ever made when I actually sat down and thought about it. And I guess what it all comes down to is the people, the community, the family. In the restaurant, you're surrounded by all these amazing, talented, brilliant people that just love life and love taking care of people. And then in TV, I mean, no offense to my colleagues in television, I still do some of that, but it's like most, especially at the lower levels, they're stabbing people in the back, climbing over them, anything they can. Oh, excuse me, I'm in New York. Uh,
No worries.
doing anything they can to advance and get that position. And I just went, I don't want to be part of this cutthroat society when I can be part of this loving family and community. And it was, it was easy because in our business, it's especially bartending. It's one of the only crafts, and I call it a craft. And Dale nailed that when he called his first book "Craft of the Cocktail." It was perfect, and it's one of the few left that you have to be mentored. You have to have someone share. You have to have someone take you under their wing, or you have to earn your way to their wing, but you have to do the job. You can go to school, you can get educated, you can read it in books, you can watch it online, you can study, 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 and you will advance faster. But you still got to get in there and get shitty. You got to get wet, you got to get sticky, you got to work hard, you got to lug stuff. And when you do, you realize it's hard. And then you realize it's unbelievably gratifying. So there was no doubt in my mind, and I've never looked back, not even once. I never even thought twice about it. But what I did, and that many of you can do, and probably are trying to do, is I used my hard work in this business, our business, to get those things that I always wanted to do, to be able to write, to be able to create, to be able to direct and produce, to be able to even be the talent or the star if I wanted to be. All those things could happen because it was based on integrity, it was based on knowledge, it was based on study, it was based on research, it was based on sharing, which is what it's all about. So I'm sorry, I could go on forever, but I'm not going to. I know you have other important questions for everyone to hear. And while we're talking, can you put my the presentations? Yeah, I want to show you guys while we're talking. Just look at some of these images of where I've been working and what we're talking about today for the last 30 plus years. And I've actually been going there for more than 40, almost 50 now, believe it or not. So, and studying this. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, Val.
No, thank you so much. You are often recognized as one of the people who helped introduce traditional mezcal to the global bar community. In those early years, what did people understand about mezcal? And what were some of the biggest challenges in educating the industry before the category gained international recognition? Because, I mean, I am Mexican, and For us, mezcal was something that was not even in our minds. So it's kind of interesting to see how you saw the potential and you decided to bring this opportunity to all these communities, right?
Okay, I would love to say yes, that's exactly how it happened, and seem really smart. But I'm not quite that smart, I don't think. Let me start here. First of all, I was already working in agave spirits, and I'd worked in tequila for at that time when this all began for me and really took off, probably almost 15 years. And I had helped, not just me. There were a lot of people doing it. I mentioned Dre and Henry. I could name 20 more people that were just out there. Tom Estes, Julio Bermejo, come on, and many, many, many others that were working hard to share this idea that tequila was an artisanal spirit. It was handmade. It was beautiful. But it all came down to this plant that I've been showing you all these beautiful images because I didn't know where else I could put them. So I just shot it. Thought I'd show you my favorites because this might have been the biggest misunderstanding, is how important the plant is, and how the plant is what the liquid means. Yeah, without the plant, you got nothing. So, basically, you start with the plant, and then you have the process of converting it, and you have the place where it's made and where it grows, and then you have the people that do it. So the P's, the 4 P's, if you will. But that's just that teaching tricks. I'm an educator. What can I do? I'm always teaching. So I will say that when we started, now you're Mexican, so nobody drank mezcal except for up in the villages where it was a ritual beverage, a spiritual beverage. It was an art form. Nobody sits around drinking mezcal. They use it for celebrations like weddings and baptisms and funerals, for Dia de los Muertos, the most important, and Navidad and Semana Santa. That's what mezcal's for. It's for celebration and it's for special occasions. That said, you have to understand, some people will say, yeah, well, that's the American brand. Guys, when we started, Mexicans didn't drink mezcal. I mean, I'll bet you were raised, your parents told you mezcal would make you go blind. And quite frankly, they weren't that far from the truth because there was a lot of rot gut, a lot of industrial, a lot of adulterated mezcal. Ron Cooper used to always say to me, the closer you get to the city, the more adulterated it gets. And I'm like, that makes sense in a lot of different ways, right? But we'll talk a lot more about Ron in a moment. But to us, the only audience that we thought we might be able to have was in the United States. But I digress. Let me start here. There's the man. Just call me a co-founder. It's a great honor. But honestly, that's the man who figured it out. That's the man who found it. That's the man who is the visionary. That's Ron Cooper. And Ron Cooper is a brilliant artist and has become, over many, many, many years, my dear friend, my brother, my business partner. And I learned so much from Ron. And Ron was the driving force because when Ron was there making art in Oaxaca, he found people making this, what he called liquid art. And liquid art to him was just like what he did, except they did it with liquid. And he was fascinated by it. And why did it taste like that? And why did every village taste different? And why did every hand of the maker, every producer have a different style, even though the process was basically the same? Each village he visited, each family he visited, they had different flavors, they had different textures, they had different, yeah. And so Ron decided he wanted to share that with the world. That was his mission. He saw it as liquid art, and that's where the term comes from. He also saw them as artists, just like him, and respected them the same way. And that crazy ass process, which you'll learn a little bit more about in a few minutes through my slides, was the performance art, if you will. And so Ron, in his effort to bring it to the world, also made beautiful art all around Oaxaca, all based in Oaxaca, and ended up moving there and staying there. And there's the man himself right there, where perhaps he is most comfortable and the happiest, which is standing on a mountaintop in Oaxaca looking out over the fields. What I would say is, to answer your question specifically, is that nobody knew anything about mezcal. There were just a handful of people around the planet that had tasted anything like this. Seriously, we've tasted it maybe in other places, But I mean, I've worked in virtually every distillation region in the world. And at the time, I was already working in Mexico in tequila. And I knew about these mezcals. And I've tasted a few once in a while that would be like, oh my God, where did that come from? And here comes this guy, Ron Cooper, and he's got these crazy bottles, and he's got two of them, and then four of them. And I'm like, whoa, who are you? What in the world? So I said, this is where Ron's most comfortable, but to catch you all up, or it could be behind the wheel of that, as I was part of that team that raced Baja, believe it or not. And that is the vehicle, the Del Maguey vehicle for Baja. And this is what he's doing now. He has finally brought all of his loves together, cars and bars, right? I mean, that was actually a gallery exhibit, but he's designing high speed sports
Wow.
cars, race cars, hot rods, and those bars in the back are part of his visual art, because Ron is considered one of the great artists on our planet. And that, by the way, last Saturday he set a world land speed record at the age of 84. Yep, not for his age class, for his motor class. Yeah, over 150 miles an hour in a sprint at El Mirage. Yeah, if you know anything about racing, it's crazy. So there's how it
Incredible.
began for me. That is my dear friend Jimmy Yeager. Many of you probably know Jimmy. Jimmy he's my brother, and he and I went to Oaxaca to find out what in the hell was going on there, and we went in search of two things: pulque, which we finally found in one of the markets, and the elusive tobola, which we found. And I will say that at that time, we had a huge road ahead of us, but we had no idea just how difficult it would be. What we knew is that it was real. This was a real story. And that is the first village that we visited, that's Santo Domingo Alboradas, way back in the day. Look how young Ron is in that picture. And Esperidion, and yeah, believe it or not, that's Juan. But that man right there, Esperidion, who we lost during COVID and we will miss forever, standing in his home, his family's home, with the dirt floor, the kitchen in a separate, wood burning comal in a separate room, but that was it. One room house with the whole family living there. I didn't know how or why or when, but I knew my life had changed forever that minute, just being there. And Jimmy and I came out of that like pretty freaked out, because there we are now. So shortly thereafter, Jimmy had this crazy, wild, brilliant idea of, let's bring Ron to Aspen. Jimmy's restaurants are in Aspen, where he's retired from that now and traveling the world on his motorcycle. Hi, Jimmy. Hope you get to see this. And it was his idea. And he said, come on, man, let's bring Ron to Aspen. Let's set up a table. We'll make cocktails and we'll put Ron Cooper out there and let him meet all those people. And at nighttime, we'll have Ron hang out at the restaurant and let all the chefs come and meet him and taste this stuff, because it blew our minds. And it was such an amazing story and such amazing culture, and everything about it was magical. And we assumed that the brightest minds in the business would figure it out. And all of our sommelier friends and bartender friends and chef friends came by and met Ron. And that was the beginning. And look how stylish we are there, man. Do you see the pleats? I mean, come on. But believe it or not, this is what the Palenque looked like. The bodega looked like when Jimmy and I first went. There was just one room. Seriously, Ron slept on a cot in the corner, and there was his bottling line was one of those old Italian 6 spigot items. It was absolutely crazy. Ron's mission was to share this with the world. And very quickly, we had a new mission. And our mission was to protect this ancient way of doing things and help do what we could to preserve the culture, not to appropriate it, to celebrate it, to respect it, to try and help people continue living the way they had, but give them the upgrades that every human being deserves. And so for the longest time, everything just went back into the villages. But I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later. This is what it looked like back in those days. That's the first Palenque that Del Maguey, or Ron Cooper, was responsible for helping to build. Because, Faustino there from Chichicapa, he rented a still that's the way it was done. There was one still in the village, and he would pay either mezcal or maybe he'd trade a goat or a chicken for the use of the still. But his mezcal was the best in the village, so he would trade his mezcal for using the still. So when Ron and Faustino made a deal, it was like, well, yeah, but you got to buy the agave and you got to pay for the still. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So a partnership was formed. 1995, we shipped the first bottles of Chichicapa to the United States, and Faustino has been a partner ever since. And that's the
Yes.
way we look at it. They are partners. All of the families. We work with 10 families in 10 villages to this day. And there he is holding the original bottle from 1995, which was a picture of him on it. And he looks just like the Marlboro Man, if you know those old commercials from the 60s and 70s. This is San Luis del Rio. I mean, look at this. It's just beautiful and ancient. We still do it the same way. Nothing has changed. Everything is traditional. So I show you the old photos, but in a moment, I'm going to show you photos that look just as old, and they're like last week and stuff. That's the other. We started with two families, San Luis del Rio. So believe it or not, that's Marcos. You'll meet him a little bit later on. And Ron wants to make sure that always I say that no children were involved in the production of this mezcal. I don't want anyone to think that there are child laborers. That was Marcos. He was crossing the river with the burro, with the agave, and he said, I want to be in the picture. I want to be in the picture. And Ron took the picture, and it was so damn cute, he put it on the label. So there you go. As an artist, he has that flexibility. Oops, sorry. And there's Ron, again, many years ago. That's Rogelio. Those are Tobola hearts, all right? And here's what happened. Jimmy and I basically, we got Ron to Aspen. Everybody embraced it. Well, many people did. It was the beginning. And we sat down with Ron and we said, we're never going to let you fail. You've done something absolutely amazing. We don't want anything for it. We just want to help. We're going to help you. There was another partner at that time, Michael Gardner, who many people know, and a lot of people don't because he's often behind the scenes. But Michael is a genius and is huge in all of this. You'll meet him a little bit later on too. But at this time, Michael had helped Ron get into the country, helped him figure out the rules, helped him figure out the labeling and all of that stuff. We met Michael, then we met Ron, and then we went to Oaxaca. Then we brought Ron back, and then we said, we're with you. And there are Ron and I signing that pact, if you will. But there, okay, should I stop and let you ask another
No, that's
question here?
fine. I mean, you're like, this is so fascinating because I was just thinking that, yeah, you made us all, and I'm talking about Mexicans, to recognize one of the most, I guess, I will say magical spirits. Because, I mean, we've always been very close to tequila. And then mezcal was there, but again, it was not regulated. So it was something that was not safe to consume. After Del Maguey came, there was a boom of mezcal, and there was so many different brands, from small to big to, like to crafted and very artisanal, always artisanal, which is one of the things that I love about mezcal. But what made Del Maguey unique over the time, once there was so many different brands out there?
Well, I mean, I think that mission is the beginning of that, and then this unrelenting idea that we were going to share it with everybody. Ron's way of he always said nariz a nariz, nose to nose, one person at a time, one bar at a time, and that's how we did it. I carried my flask with me in my backpack everywhere I went, and over time, bartenders, chefs, servers, customers, clients. I mean, people started embracing it and they wanted to hear the story. And when they
Yeah.
heard the story, they couldn't believe it. And much later, we started taking small groups down and introducing them to these
Mm.
families and taking them into the villages to eat and to commune with the family. And that just changes everything, like it did for us. I'm gonna. I talked about the importance of the plant. That's maybe my favorite picture of Ron Cooper. This is one of the first fields that we planted. We learned somehow early that we needed to figure things out, like become sustainable. So our mission as it was evolving was like, well, now how do we support the people? And for many, many years, every penny went back into the villages. It went to the families. And we didn't tell the villages what to do with the money. We paid the families for the mezcal a fair artist's rate. Think of it like this. Del Maguey is like an art gallery, and we are the lucky curators, and we've got 10 artists or so, a dozen, 15 now, because the kids are branching out, doing their own thing and stuff. It's awesome. And um, and so it's our job to curate that, choose the best, support them in the efforts to make that work. And so what we would do is we paid them as artists. That wasn't going rate. That was a fair rate. And so then it was up to them what they did. And every one of these families, because they're indigenous, most of them Zapotec, then they would give it back to the village, because that's the way it works. It's a community. The Zapotecs believe that man cannot own land, that God owns the land. So if you want to work the land, then you have to be part of the community, and you give back to the community, and you do it through your service, like your city council or your government service, if you will. You do it through your religious. You have to do service to the church. Maybe you're doing service through the school, right? But these families then would bring the money back, and put it into the community. And sometimes they would come to us and say, hey, can you help with this or that? And of course, we always did. And that's why we were always broke. But they always got paid. And that was the key. And everything else was secondary, because we believed that there was an empowerment that could happen there. And like I say, our mission evolved very, very quickly into this. So that's Ron talking about that plant. And what he's saying is that it is rooted into the ground, and it wants for nothing except the cosmic energy of the sun and water. That's all it needs. It doesn't want any help from humanity. It wants to grow in the weirdest places, and it just wants to live by itself. And that's why the Native American people consider it the center of their, to this day, of a subsistence lifestyle. It's necessary for shoes and clothing and paper and rope and textiles and building homes. And I mean, and for nutrition. The alcohol came later, and the distillation came even later. So that gives you an idea of where they grow. It's pretty much anywhere they want to, because they can, right? So I'll quickly walk you through this. So you said what makes us unique, but we also, we're talking about this idea of families and so forth. And by the way, I should point out, we're not the only ones. Fortunately, there were many people that were doing this, that this empowered, and it opened a market. There are others who have tried to follow in Ron's footsteps, in our footsteps, to try and do it the right way. There are many people who found their own way and are doing it the right way, which is awesome. I would just, caution against those that are taking advantage of it. And everyone is, to a certain extent, I suppose. But I mean, if you're not giving back to the community, if you don't know the name of the people that made it, if you don't understand the spirituality behind the plant and behind the liquid, shame on you. To me, it's like that. What this is all about? I have this picture here because we still harvest the old Zapotec way by hand, right? You choose the plants that are ripe. You don't take the others, right? And you manage them very, very carefully, and you just take what you need. You take enough for a roast, and you make that roast. Then you go back out to the field, and you go through again, and you take the next ripest ones. And by that time, they're probably more ripe. And believe it or not, yeah, I know that picture looks really, really old. I could show you several more today where they still do it this way. Not so much. We have trucks, but there are still villages. I mean, up here in Santa Maria Alvarado's, the only way you get those tobolas and those tepastates is to bring them down on burros, because they're way up in the mountains, wild agaves. And the ancient way of roasting underground. So all of the mezcal that's in that green bottle, okay, with Kenny's labels that he designed, that Ron then colored and turned into labels, the most incredible joint venture of artwork ever in history, in my opinion, perhaps. But digging a pit, and for anybody who's still misunderstanding this, it's not smoked, it's roasted, and there's no live flame in there. There's a hot fire. We put those rocks on it. The rocks get hot. That's Pegaso, guys. That's the fiber from the agave. It's completely indestructible. That's already been cut, been roasted, been fermented, been distilled, and now it's going on the roast to protect the agave hearts, or maguey hearts as we call them, as they go onto the roast, okay? I mentioned spiritual, check it out, okay? Every single family works this way. And just a couple examples of some of the different kinds of roasting pits you can get without spending time on it. I'd love to. The different ways that you can grind or mill, as we call it. That's a molino. It's a Tahona in Jalisco because it's a different indigenous people that named it the Tahona. We don't call it that down here, although lately that word has come down to Oaxaca quite a bit. But it could be mallets like that, or it could be wooden bats like that, or it could be bats in a hollowed out tree trunk or a canoa like that. Fermented always, 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 always. It's wild yeast, ambient yeast in open top oak fermenters like that. Okay. Natural spring water. Water is absolutely essential. So remember, I was saying place, how important it is. Plant, process, place, and people. We'll get to the people because that's the most important part of all. That's the cap. You should understand this. That goes into that's the ferment, and that goes into the still like that in traditional mezcal. In the new rules, not new anymore, 2017, you don't have to put fiber in your still anymore. And I get the reason. It's because certain areas of Mexico don't do that traditionally. Okay, then make different DOs for each of those regions, because in Oaxaca, you take that away and you've just taken another step towards industrial, just like roasting underground. Not everyone roasts underground. There are regions in Mexico that make mezcal roasted in an adobe oven, right? So and they deserve then their own rules, because if you try to put all those rules into the largest DO on earth, yes, it is, believe it or not, bigger than Bordeaux or Rhone or anywhere else, the biggest DO, you're bending the rules everywhere that you go by making them acceptable and basically opening the door to industrialization, because that's what the stills look like. That's a clay still. You can call it the Filipino still if you want, but did they bring it here or did they take it home? Oh, well, wait a minute. Oh, let's not even get into that right now. Those are clay stills with bamboo, or carrizo as we call it. If you notice, the copper still and the clay still are made to be exactly the same. The difference is copper doesn't break and it's a better conductor of heat. So, some people switched over to copper. If you still believe that the Spanish taught these indigenous people how to distill, we got to have a talk offline, okay? Because these people were distilling long before the Spanish got there. We now believe it could be as early as 400 to 600 BC. Are you kidding me? But the fact of the matter is, the Spanish left their stills behind and went up to northern Mexico and western Mexico and started growing grapes, which they were really good at, and made brandy out of it because that they knew how to do. This stuff, forget about it. How do you make that stuff ferment anyway?
Well
And
said.
it's not ferment. It's not distilled pulque either. That doesn't happen either. Those are some other clay stills. I mean, you see, it's artwork to them. They turn their stills into beauty, right? But it is all about the distiller's art. Okay, that's really what it all comes down to. And what I just showed you, every single Del Maguey, every green bottle follows those basic principles. Has to be roasted underground. Has to be milled by hand or by horse. Although, if you get me talking later on about efficiency and about scaling up and about our ability to be green, you'll see that we are using mechanical grinders that, and I know you guys experimented with that at Altos too. We went up and saw that and worked with that as well, to find the best way to extract the sugars without changing the flavors, which is key. But it is, for sustainability, it's absolutely the next one of the things you can change. But what can't change? Open top fermenters. What can't change? Small copper stills. And what can't change is that person right there. Man or woman, the person who makes the decisions, the person who makes that still sing. That is the distiller's art, and that's what this is all about. I digress.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I think you are touching on very important things of the uniqueness of mezcal and in general, like Del Maguey, which is amazing. And one of the things that I love about Del Maguey is that you had this vision of having, you know, like this focus on the exact village or the producers or even the culture, because from village to village the spirit changes. It can change because of the plant that you used, it can change because of the process sometimes, because you can have like different indigenous cultures working on different processes that now are more regulated. But that's very fascinating. How that idea came to life? Like you mentioned that you were looking for tonala, right? And then after you found the tobala, you decided with tobala, or where was
No,
the process?
Ron brought Tobola to Jimmy and I, and blew our minds, and that was it for me. That was the moment where I just said, "Okay, that's it. I'm helping this guy. I got to. I mean, this is what I do." I'll never forget the night that Ron and I met. Um, he, I just looked at him and I said, "You really, you're not in the spirits business. You don't really understand this, do you?" And he just looked at me and goes, "I'm an artist, man." I'm like, "Yes, you are, and you're brilliant." And by the way, let me just make sure I clarify that. Ron Cooper, don't ever tell Ron you can't do something, or don't ever challenge him, because Ron will find a way. And that's what Ron did. And with Michael Gardner's help, by the way, figuring this out and figuring out how to get, in those days, the BATF in those days, right? And getting it into the country. Because when he first tried to bring it for his art projects, they turned him around at the border. Like, you could take that back, or you can dump it out right there in a drain. And I won't tell you the whole story. It's in his book. Read his book. He tells great stories in the book. He tells the story of this. It makes him it feel like, is it Steve McQueen and Ali McGraw in The Getaway, right? Slim Pickens. he always he always tells me about that. But he brought it in. He said, "That's never going to happen. I'm going to make this work." And I will say, Michael was unbelievably important in those days and forever, all the way through, but working behind the scenes. Um, of helping figure that out and figure out how to get it in there. And I'm pretty sure, I think Michael would give credit to Ron would give credit to Michael for coming up with this idea of single village mezcal, because Ron's concept as an artist, and he tastes in color, by the way. Uh-huh. It took me a little while to figure that out, but that opened my eyes to this whole new way of tasting. This was 25 years ago, more than that. But Ron saw each one of them as having a very independent terroir. Okay, and he thought of it as wine. He was no spirits expert. He didn't know that much about it. He learned about terroir from Paul Draper at Ridge, right? And he was fascinated by that, and he had tasted with him and learned from him, and he was like, "What is this? What is going on here? Each one of these is different. Why?" And so we spent our lives investigating the whys. And so that story had to be told. And we never I'll never forget, at the very beginning, Ron was told by everybody, "You got to blend these together. Nobody's ever going to fall for this stuff." And we're like, "Yeah, we'll stick with it." And then some people put it in wood. That's fine. Some people watered it down to 40. Mezcal con agua no es mezcal. If it has water added, it can't be mezcal anymore. Just ask the Zapatas or the Popolocas or the Mixtecas. They'll all tell you the same thing. "No, don't put water in there. It's no longer mezcal. We can't drink it. It's adulterated now." So we honored those traditions. And we just said, "Yeah, you know what? We're going to stick with the individual liquid. We're going to stick with this very idiosyncratic, very iconic thing. We're not going to change them. We're not going to blend them. We're not going to lower their proof. We're not going to put them in wood, because something told us that one day that sticking to that would matter, not because it would make us famous. People would understand, and they would grab onto it. It would just take time." And it did. It took a long time. And 15 years later, we finally released Vita, which of course changed the world of mezcal. That's the moment, 2010, when Pasiano at San Luis del Rio wrapped his head around it and just said, "Dude, this is what we got to do." And we worked together on this, but it's all him, and realizing that if we could create a bit more volume and create a bit of a loss leader and make it a little bit lower proof, which was the hardest thing for him, because he had been taught by his father and his grandfather, 47 is his mezcal. It's always 47. So getting him to wrap his head around bringing it down to 42 without adding water, doing it naturally, that was difficult. But when When he finally brought the liquid, we were there, we tasted, we went, that's it. You killed it. That is it right there. Then, well, that brings us to the sustainability issue that I raised it earlier. And I'll just comment that when you ask someone to scale up, or when you expect someone to scale up, which is a bad expectation to have, but it's part of doing business. I will say this right now. Don't ever follow Del Maguey's business plan. Learn the stories, understand what made it work, but we didn't. It's the only business plan I've ever worked with that didn't have an exit strategy. It wasn't about leaving. It was just about doing. And everyone knows if you're going to write a business plan, you have to have an exit. That's what makes it a business plan. But we didn't. We just believed that we would do this with them forever because we were partners, and this was a beautiful thing that they had created that we were bringing to the world. So that's how agaves want to reproduce, although many of them, some species also have what we call hijuelos, which are little baby pups that come up in the ground, but those are, of course, clones of their mother. So this issue of scaling up, if you go to, let's say, San Luis del Rio, and we say, okay, we need to scale up. The first thing we look at is, well, how do we make more? That's the first step, right? Now, you can go industrial. You could go with bigger fermenters. You could go with ovens above ground, huge ones. You could go with stainless steel fermenters and add yeast, right? You could go with bigger stills, and you could go with huge, grinders, right? But what we believed is to respect the tradition, we needed to do it the old way and continue making it by hand. And so the genius of Vida in Paciano and Marcos and the family, and by the way, everyone's involved. All right.
I
I
know.
mean, it's the most beautiful thing. But Mary Lou and Emma, the daughters, they make mezcal also. They have their own palenques. It's amazing. The uncles and cousins. And what we did there together as a team, not us, the collective us, is that, well, just to put it into perspective, when we started there, I showed a picture earlier of what the palenque looked like in 2014, right? Not that long ago. Vida was well underway. We had 2 stills, we had 11 fermenters, we had 1 Orno, and we had 1 Molino. That's it. Today, I mean, just to put it into perspective, there are 30 some small 300-liter stills. Instead of big ones, there are lots of small ones, right?
Yeah.
There's 5 roasting pits, okay? There's 120 something fermenters, but there's still 1,000-liter open-top wood fermenters. Every single step is done by hand, exactly the way it was always done, just expanded. More of it, and that means more jobs as well. It also means more agave and more waste. So this is where all of that really comes in, is that it's absolutely essential that if we're asking them to scale up, then we need to help them understand. Because when you say sustainability, there are a lot of ways to look at sustainability: environmental, social, cultural, political, and they all matter. As a matter of fact, one of our first full-time hires was Gabriel, who is our director of sustainability, and took us to a whole new level and helped us do it right and organize it. And it all comes down to respecting the land, respecting the people, respecting the culture, respecting the ancient ways. And what we tried to do is, as I said, support the villages with the things that they needed. But what we realized, the 2 biggest things that we had to help with was waste remediation, the waste from distilling. Where's it going to go? How are we going to deal with it? How are we going to make it clean? And reforestation, not just of the agaves, but also of the wood. And then, of course, you've got the water issue too. So I'm going to go through some slides here and talk about that. But I would just say that one thing I want to mention before I move on into sustainability is, you asked me why the focus on the families. And that was, Ron saying they're artists, and they are. And us not, it's never been about us. But I would say even further than that, so many of the brands today, mezcal and otherwise, create a story and then they go create a liquid to match this story. And we had a real story. And the best marketing of all is when you get to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And the bartenders, chefs, hospitality professionals, we embraced real stories. And when you take people down there and they experience that and they go in their homes and they meet the families and they eat the food and they see the process and they walk the fields and see the wild agaves, it just, like with me, changed their lives. So again, the reproduction is absolutely essential. And I say that because for the old ways, we would always allow the most healthy mothers to grow their quiotes, the stock, all right, for reproduction, if you will. And then we take seeds from this. This is how it would want to reproduce. This is during COVID, as a matter of fact. Just towards the end of COVID, we decided to give up this whole field. Whatever flowered. And we did a project working with a brilliant agronomist and our agronomist and a local vivero, and we gave all these seeds to the vivero. We got some for ourselves, and the rest went to anyone who wanted them in Oaxaca to continue this goal towards maintaining biodiversity in the fields. If you're going to have espadín, there are several different clones of espadín. There are several different mothers, and it really isn't rocket science. We learned this from our people, not us. It's ancient, all right? Those are Arauqueño babies that have been planted in the milpas or the Mayan garden. So you see the babies. On the left, you see corn, right? Here they are just a few months later, actually, like the same season. But you got corn, beans, squash. That is the Mayan garden. That's the milpas, right? And the agaves grow. Corn was not a happy accident. It was an invention by the Mayans to be symbiotic in the soil with the corn. And they work together. If you plant them together, you don't even need to rotate your crop. So it could be this simple. It's hard work. It takes more money. It takes more time. But if you take the different mothers from the different fields and keep them in different plots, then when you go to replant a field, you take from each plot, you have biodiversity. That's Paciano. We didn't do that. Paciano showed us that. It's like, oh, I get it now. So we have, I mean, at Del Maguey, and many other people are working with us or on their own to do beautiful things. It's just really important to us that we continue to explore the different varietals and continue to reforest. So we have a wild agave nursery with now something like 40 different species growing there and several different varieties within a species and subspecies. And we're doing espadín replanting from the bulbils, not from the hijuelos, so that we're getting biodiversity. And then, believe it or not, even though Santa Maria Alvaradas, that village says only God can plant tobola, we're like, well, what if we just help God and we'll give you babies and then we can plant them up in the wilderness where they come from? Because up there they take 12 to 15 years to ripen. But again, you can't ask them to scale up, and nor would we. In Tobola, they tell us this is how much you get this year. It's one harvest a year, and this is how much you're going to get. Period. End of story. And we're thrilled to see it, and we treat it with that kind of respect. So, and we get the villages involved. They're doing it with us. Actually, we're doing it with them more, right? And then Gabe has worked with, in this case, with Pernod Ricard and with Heifer International. This is an amazing thing. Food security, we just call it. But in this particular case, they're raising chickens. And the eggs are now being used in some of the top restaurants in Oaxaca, saying, eggs from Santo Domingo Alvaradas, which is insane that they didn't have eggs before. But, they did, but not as a business, right? So this is one of our most important projects, the Zapotec language. The Zapotec talking dictionary. This is Gabe's baby all the way. And it is, it's an unwritten language. And, some genius once said that if you lose the language, you lose the culture. And if we don't find a way to preserve that language, so we're working with a few different universities, and it's amazing. By the way, this is all stuff like this. You can find a little information on the website. We've never been very good at talking about it. We just do it. Um, this was Gabe's too. Digital library. We love to build libraries in all the villages, but some of our villages are pretty remote. And I love what they did building a library in Minas and, working with the waste materials to do so. But, Gabe came up with this. It's 50,000 books in Spanish. So if you have computers or phones or tablets that you want, you give them to us. We bring them down there. We clean them out, and then we load the books on there, and we bring them to the villages. That is one of our most remote villages. That's Las Milpas. That's their new library in that brand new tablet that I brought to them. Gabe delivered it. It's just so incredibly gratifying. We working with scientists who have brought bees back. We've got an apiculture program, and people are making honey in their village. Can you imagine honey made from agave pollen from that village, and then using that in a variation on bees' knees? Go forget about it. This picture kills me because during COVID, we had put internet towers in our own home village, Teotihuacan del Valle, and then we managed to get one in San Luis del Rio, which took several going over mountain ranges to get out there. And they came to us from Santa Maria Alboradas during COVID and asked Gabe if we would consider putting one in because the kids couldn't go to school and they didn't have internet. And we put one in. We were like, yeah, Gabe, if you can get it done, get it done. And he did. And that chalkboard over on the right will just tell you everything you need to know. But basically, the first day's lesson, in the middle, it's live in peace. And then all around it are words like kindness and love. And yeah, that's why you do this. That's why you do this. But so many different things that we try to do, giving back to our village, Teotihuacan del Valle. They have, like everywhere in Mexico, in the world, we have water shortages, we have water issues. So not only getting clean water in the villages, which is one of our early tasks, and then electricity, which running water. But in our village, they have a reservoir, but getting water down to a certain part of the village they couldn't manage. So we got them a truck because that's what you do. But the thing is, it all comes back to the people. When you say sustainability, you better be talking social as well, because that's how it begins. So we didn't say, here, you need a truck. They came to us and said, could you help us with this? And we're like, yeah. I want to just quickly touch on waste remediation because it is maybe the most dangerous and most difficult, and it took us a long time and a lot of research. Gabe worked his butt off on that. Many other palenques have been also. We collaborate and talk to people and learn from them. We sent the architect that also wrote the book, bringing back that ancient way of doing so. We sent him to a conference in Switzerland with samples of arbenaceous, and people, worked together, and we created a formula to be able to return the earth. And as Ron likes to say, even God don't make new earth. And he says it that way on purpose. And we have built a patio, we built dikes, we're building structures, we're getting ready to build a bridge, all from waste materials. And at the new property up in Puebla, we had the land to be able to do a massive waste remediation projection up there, which is cool. So just very quickly, one of my closing moments with Pernod Ricard is knowing that they needed to scale up, knowing that they didn't do the joint venture with us with the idea of Del Maguey staying the same. They wanted everything the same, but we need more product. And everybody wants mezcal. And we need it to be, in clubs and bars and neighborhood bars and sports bars. And, there should be one green bottle of Vita up there next to, Chivas and Absolute and Beefeater and all those other great brands, right? And of course, imagine our palenqueros are like, really? We're up next to Martell. That's pretty cool, So rather than trying to put strain on any of our villages and allowing them to continue making it the way they were, even that's why it's Vita Classico, so it could continue to be made the same way. We knew we had to come up with another way, and I'll just gloss through this before we run out of time. Working with Marco Antonio, who's the director of operations for Mexico, and a man I adore, love, respect, admire, we sat down together in a corner during a board meeting and said, we can't do this. We can't ask San Luis del Rio to produce more. We got to figure this out over long stories and lots of cool stuff. But Arturo Arturo is our director of operations at Del Maguey. You'll meet him in a minute. Gabe, me, Ron, Michael, the entire team at Pernod Ricard, we work together to embrace the traditions, to respect the indigenous ways, to build a facility using the technology that was available to us, using the 25 plus years of research that we had done on what is absolutely essential to embrace the tradition and make the flavors, and what can we make more efficient, and what can we make more environmentally sound. And we went there to Puebla, right at the base of the volcano, and we went old school. We, everything is old school except a little technology. So, being able to press better, being able to extract the sugars better, being able to use less agaves to make the same amount of mezcal. Old school, typical, conical roast, but yeah, high-tech bottling line. So, doing things that we could do that wouldn't ever change the flavor. And this is the closest thing that any distillery in mezcal has ever gotten to green. I'm obviously Absolut's the only distillery in the world that I know of that's 100% green. We're working towards that. But the idea is to use the local environment and to make it as carbon neutral as possible, but embracing the ancient traditions. And for the very first time, making a mezcal that is 40 degrees to be able to give Pernod Ricard the opportunity to compete with everyone who was working hard to get Vita Classico's spot in the well. This is not to replace Vita Classico. This is for those of you who just need a more affordable option in the well, and it makes kick-ass cocktails, if I may say so. So enough on that. I'm sorry, before we run out of time, I know you have more questions for me. So.
Yeah, no, I have follow-up questions because this is fascinating, Steve. So thank you so much. And I have to say that I fell in love with mezcal from another side. My expertise is in poverty reduction and social sustainability. And the first time that I went to the towns and the villages of mezcal, it was before everything happened, before Pernod Ricard, before Del Maguey, and I was working in a community near to San Luis del Rio. This was Santana del Rio, which is actually in the same area.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
came
Beautiful
back.
village too.
Yeah, also beautiful village. And I could see that I was actually working with Heifer in the food security program, and that's
Oh,
how I
wow.
met mezcal. But it was just so surprising to see how the communities evolved 10 years later, because I was able to come back 1 year, like 1 year ago or 2 years ago, I don't remember. But it was very impressive to see all the progress, even from the families, because I love that you always say that like it always goes back to the people and the stories. So I met Pasiano's family and how they were telling me all their stories about how they started to educate themselves. I remember the first time that I went to those communities, it was very difficult to reach them. And now they had a beautiful road that connected the highway, like a lot of progress. But at the same time, I also saw other challenges. The landscape change, the water in the river was more polluted than before. Before it was kind of, you know, even like super clear, and now it was a little bit polluted because of all the processes that are being made, but also because of the drought that has hit Oaxaca in the past years, not this year. Now it's much better, but it was different problems. So with scale, there's other challenges that come to that. And I was also impressed to see that I could see more industrialization in the highways, not in the communities, but there was some new brands that went straight to the big distilleries with more machineries. And I was like, what will happen in the future? How can we balance the traditional process, this very unique part of mezcal, but at the same time, scale. You already talked about Vida Puebla and how you decided to do that. But what do you think will be the future for the industry so that it can, um, it can protect tradition, biodiversity, but also the communities behind all the production?
It's a great question, and it is the $1 million question. You know, um, we felt like we had the opportunity to do something that really, in our opinion, nobody else could really do the way we could because we had the experience and we'd been working on the ground for so long. And then with the Mexican team of Pernod Ricard, and then with the global team of production, that is brilliant, and with those resources to draw from, it was an opportunity for us to kind of set the tone. You're right. I mean, there's basically these days. I didn't want to get too political, and I'll try not to, but there's basically, besides doing it the right way, and I'm not saying we're the only ones. Please take that into consideration. We did the joint venture with Pernod Ricard for a lot of reasons, but the main reason was we needed help. Stuff's changing fast, and we realized that we couldn't possibly keep holding everything together. And the idea of being able to give each one of our families a 10-year contract to be able to make mezcal their way 10 years after we, are gone, that's basically a 35-year embracement from us to them, and it's a hug, and now they're able to continue that. So that was amazing to us. I think the two models that scare me, one is, as you mentioned, the industrial model, and that is just, we'll come down and build a factory and we'll make it just like tequila, because you can now. All the rules are the same. We use the tequila rules, right? They're even worse, actually. They're even more, that you can be even more industrial here. I mean, I remember not long ago, it seems like forever ago, but one of the biggest companies was closed because they illegally used a diffuser. And 2 days later, they were reopened. And in the new laws, diffusers are legal. It's like, come on, really? Really? Diffusers in Oaxaca, they're in mezcal and the whole deal. The other model being that you have companies who go around and buy cheap mezcal from people who might not have even been distilling last week, or last year, or whatever. But there's an opportunity to feed their children, and they throw together a palenque, or they even buy juice and dilute it down so they make a few pennies. And these companies go and pay dirt cheap. I guarantee you they don't know who the people are. They blend it all together. I actually know of companies where people are proud to be the master blender. That's their job, is to make a perfect mezcal from several different, wherever they get it, And I'm not saying that's terrible, as long as you then give back. But what I ask, I don't like to speak negatively, and I never would put anyone else down, because there are many ways to do things, and there are many ways to get things done. And if you can make an impact and do things right, whatever you find, I would go with it. I would just say to everyone listening, do the research. Just find out. Do they know the name of the people that made it? Do they know the village that it came from? Do they put any money back into the village? Do they support the families? Do they support sustainability? Or are they just buying juice and throwing it in a fancy bottle and using our story for their website? And then they're looking to, turn it over for 14 times EBITDA. It's, come on. It's become like vodka in the 90s, where everybody has to have one, and it's dangerous. The land has been overplanted. Erosion is a huge issue. Deforestation is a nightmare. You see agaves as far as the eye can see, and there's absolutely no way that we could possibly use all of that agave, because while it's the fastest growing category, still it's also very organic growth, and it's a very small base to work from. So you can't plant the whole state. And unfortunately, a lot of this, people are getting away with it. That's the worst part. And in many cases, it's the local people that just don't know, or they know that there's money in it, so they plant it, which is a shame, because I believe that Look, the way we look at it as a company is that, and Ron would say this to the team, that, we opened the door to this culture, to the world. We have a responsibility. It's up to us to protect that. It's not our job. It's just we have to do everything in our power to give them the tools to be successful, to give them the
Yeah.
tools to be sustainable, to give them the tools that they need. And if we're asking them to make more, then take responsibility for that ask. Because, yeah, I think that the future is a lot better. A lot of people, I'm the guy with the glass. I'm not even half full. I'm in the hospitality business. My glass is full, or I didn't do my job. So, to me, I believe that the future is bright because I do think that more and more people really care. I mean, we do. Everyone listening does. I believe that more and more people are learning that responsibility is important. I believe that we've forced the conversation of sustainability on people, not just us, all of us collectively. Like, even if it's marketing, today you have to at least say something about the good that you're doing, right? And that's where it begins for it to become real and to become the way of the earth. I think that the biggest issue right now is, for me, is this idea of not appropriating the culture, but rather celebrating it and protecting it as much as we can. And I would say empowerment versus entitlement.
Mhm.
I think that we have the opportunity to empower people, and instead we feel entitled, like it's our, it's just colonialism all over again. Except for now, it's oftentimes Mexicans on Mexicans. It's like, just because you have a trust fund in Mexico City doesn't mean you have a God-given right to go down and take money out of the mouths of those children. I mean, that sounds really horrible, but I see it, and it's just, to me, I like to believe, and I hope that everyone listening believes also, that we have certain basic rights as humanity. I use this picture as my example. That little girl right there, her mom got to go to college. Believe it or not, that's a huge thing in Oaxaca. And for that little girl, it's like, does she not deserve? All right, let's just start with the basics: nutrition, clean water, shoes, clothes, and education. Maybe love. How about that? Could we just start
Mhm.
there? I mean, if we were to do everything in our power, if we lived our lives just trying to make that happen every day, imagine what kind of world we would live in compared to this crazy place that we're living right now. Sorry. I know you have more questions.
No, I
Oh,
love this. This is so inspiring, and for Tejana Society, this is why we are here. That those are the most important values, and we are always learning about how can we bring sustainability, not only environmental but also social, political, cultural, as you mentioned, into the hospitality industry. And just to close this this section of the talk,
oh,
um,
I got
I
so
wanted
much
to
more to
talk.
show you.
Yeah, no, no, no.
Stick
Just this
around if you
section,
can, people.
please. This section. I'm not going to
No,
leave
I know.
you, but I
I'm
just wanted
teasing.
to ask you what would be some of the most important lessons that you believe entrepreneurs and founders today can learn
Hmm.
about this story that you shared.
I'm not sure I'm in a position to be able to give advice to entrepreneurs. I have been an entrepreneur my whole life, fortunately. Well, not my whole life. I spent a lot of years running restaurants and designing restaurants. I opened over 50 restaurants and bars in my
Oh
career.
my God.
Yeah, that was the first step for me. Then but I was always an educator because education to me is everything. Okay, my lessons for entrepreneurs. First of all, believe in your concept, but make sure you choose something that you want to believe in. What's that old thing about, you if you love your work, you never work a day in your life, or something like
Hmm.
that. See,
Yeah.
clearly I love my work, and clearly I'm not retiring anytime soon. Although I thought maybe I was for a little while, and then I went, well, I can't retire. I love this too much. So believe in your people, believe in your concept, believe in what you're doing, as long as you're doing it right. So that means respecting the earth and building it around people. Try to find a way to do good, because if you're not doing good, why are you even bothering? Try to find a way to give back. And if you're trying to work in our industry, don't ever forget that it's all about bartenders. If you want people to drink spirit, if you don't train the bartender, if you don't take them under your wing, if you don't show them how it works, if you don't take them to a place like this, you have no chance. Now, the other two are the most important, and they come down to trust. Because there are a lot of things you can't trust. So you have to surround yourself with the things you can. And this is where it begins, the team. All right. Now that is a beautiful photo because it's our team in Mexico combined with our team from the United States all together in Oaxaca, feeling it, learning it, experiencing the culture, spending time with the families and so forth. And not only trust your team, but educate them and empower them and give them the tools. But if you're going to hire great people, which you should, hire people that you really believe are smarter than you are, and then empower them to do their job and let them do it. Back off and don't micromanage. That would be that's our beautiful US team, probably on the same trip. And I mean, trust them, empower them, but empower them by bringing them down there and letting them feel it. And that you see Misty in the back. She ran all of our tours for a very long time. Misty was with us for many, many years and is still working in mezcal. All of these people you probably know. I'd love to introduce you to all of them, but we'll keep moving. And again, the team. This is the Mexican team. That's Arturo on the right, our director of operations. That's Gabe on the left, our director of sustainability. Here we are with Bigote, one of our greatest producers, the producer of Papalome out in the Mixteca Alta. And I don't even know how that picture was taken. We were just sitting there talking. Like, that's not posed, believe it or not. That's why I showed it. It's hilarious to me. Again, teamwork. That's really what it comes down to. And you'll notice in their partners, make your teammates your partners and make them feel like your partners and give them a little bit of equity, and you'll be amazed how hard they'll work and how different it is when they have a little skin in the game, so to speak, right?
Right.
And that's Arturo and Gabe again, but that's Marcos, son of Paciano and producer of Vida. In my old AK Wine Geek t-shirt, can you believe that? And I would say choose partners that you like hanging out with, that you love, that you respect, and maybe most importantly, that you trust. That's Michael Gardner. You finally get to meet Michael in person because he never was out front. But anybody who knows anything like behind the scenes on Del Maguey, Michael was a big part of everything we did from the beginning. And then you might end up like this, as Ron received a big award from the Mexican Embassy in Washington, D.C. And there we are, partners together, because not only do we love hanging out together, but it's a lot of love and a lot of trust. And I would say that is absolutely essential. I showed the geek picture. Should I talk about my career in education? Because I mean, that's probably something that people might want to know about. I don't know. I keep bringing up education.
Yes, please, because I know that beyond building brands, you've dedicated decades to education, and I believe that you've done consulting, mentorship, but also a very important program called BAR, right? So uh, talk through all of that, please.
Well, the whole time we were building Del Maguey, like I said, we put every penny back into the infrastructure and into the villages. And there came a point, like when Vida, we brought Michael back into the company, so to speak, like on a more public level back in 2010 or 11 when we launched Vida, because now we really needed him. And the first thing we did is put Ron on a salary, which was really cool because Ron had been using his art to pay for the company for a very long time to make sure his people were always paid, and starving basically. And we bought him a truck. That was important because we were driving around in these two old Jeep Cherokees that were 20 years old, if that, maybe a lot older. I don't even know. That's all we had. And so we got him a truck and gave him a salary, and then we put Michael on salary, and I kept my company, aka Wine Geek, which is education and consulting in the food and beverage arena, going back 25 years. And eventually, when we did the joint venture with Pernod Ricard, then I stopped working at AK. I put AK Wine Geek on a temporary hold, but it is back alive now because I have moved back into my educational sphere. But this is what you were mentioning, Beverage Alcohol Resource, or BAR, back in 1995. I got to work with these crazy guys, and we knew that we were probably the right people. There were many others that could have been part of it, but that we could give back to our industry that had been so good to us. And you'll see right there, Andy Seymour, Doug Frost, Dale DeGroff, David Wondrich, Paul Packelt. That's a crazy, silly photo, but I like silly. And you'll see that one of the things that I always tell people, if you want advice, is never take yourself too seriously. Take your work seriously. Take your mission seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. And we don't, ever. But we do take this mission seriously. And we created Beverage Alcohol Resource, which is a school for bartenders and spirits experts and writers and distillers and brewers. We have all kinds of people come through to take your spirits and cocktail and history and production knowledge to the highest level. And it takes some time to get through the manual and get through the online studies and so forth. And then you have a 5-day, we call it Bar 5 because there's a 5-day interactive teaching and testing going on at the Culinary Institute of America once a year. We, this year, get ready to roll. This is going to be crazy, but we've decided if the technology works, some friends of ours at KTF Films, Don Hardy, brilliant director, created a documentary. He came to the school with his crew, and we were very reluctant. We didn't want to open the school to that because it's a very, very intimate gathering, and it's very, very important what we do. And we want to respect our students. And then here we were trying to debate whether or not we should do this. And we're like, what are we doing? Let's ask the students like we always do. So we asked the students, and of course they were all like, yeah, I'll sign a disclaimer. I want to do that. And we're like, oh, okay. Different generation, it was awesome. So we shot the documentary. And if you can you roll the documentary? Do you have the technology?
Yes.
It's just a minute long or something like that, but it gives you an idea, and it's available on YouTube, and you can all watch it. And it is a celebration of our craft. I have to say this as a lead. You'll see. No, I'm not going to say anything. Just watch. Watch the documentary, and then I'll comment.
Almost anybody can be taught how to make a good cocktail. But my work is the thing that I do to change people's day. Those moments of being a human being. You can't measure that.
We created a diploma so that you could carry forward this torch. So there are 5 tests, and you have to pass all 5 of them.
It's intense. It's highly technical. It's like getting your PhD in the spirits world.
You do not show up to Bar 5-day and expect to pass if you haven't been studying.
This is an industry I've been devoted to for years. I have a very competitive side of me.
Nervous is an understatement.
It's mentally and physically fatiguing. Your nose dries out from doing all the tasting.
Halfway through day 1, they're like, what did I sign up for?
I don't know enough. That's way outside of my realm of things to do. I just never actually thought that I could see myself here.
The students have put so much pressure on this moment.
You don't want to crush people, but you have to judge them according to the standards because we have specifics to uphold. This can make or break you.
If you're not a square, a rectangle, or a round, you don't fit in those holes, where do you go? Hospitality is one of the places where you go.
Bartenders are empathetic people. That's just who we are. You don't get into bartending because you hate humans.
Woo! To be able to connect with bartenders from across the globe that come here, it's an amazing opportunity.
It truly is life-changing.
It's not just about making drinks, but it is a craft and it's a very skilled trade.
Serving people is a special thing. Not everybody can do it.
All right, good luck, everyone. So there.
Wow.
Did you
I love it.
recognize some of those people in there? Some of them might even be watching. Who knows? But I will just say this: we weren't sure if we could allow them in, and Don and his team were amazing. And the best part, the most important part, the part that allowed it to be released, is that they got it like the first day. They went, "Oh my God, this isn't a competition. These people aren't like cutting each other's throats to win. It's not about winning. These people are working together for this knowledge, for this certification." And they captured this community, this family. And it's very gratifying. So I urge everyone watching to go to YouTube and find the feature film. It's on there. It's only 90 minutes long, but I think you'll be, as a bartender or anyone in the hospitality craft, you'll be blown away. The team did a great job. I'm talking about the documentary team. Don and his crew were mind-blowing, and it's beautifully shot, beautifully edited. The music is great. You heard it. I mean, it's incredible. And you get interviews with all the different partners originally, and then you see the diversity and how much it's changed. We've got 28 teachers now, and they represent some of the most brilliant minds on the planet, and just sharing, because that's what it all comes down to, and that's why we do that. I mean, for me, that's why I do it. It's all about sharing. It's all about giving back. It's all about mentoring, and that's what keeps me focused. That's why I can't ever retire.
Well, this is fascinating, Steve. And so, what excites you most when you think about the future of mezcal and agave spirits? With this, I mean, where do you see the greatest opportunities? You already talk about education and why it's so important, but how do you see this next generation coming?
The next generation is the key. You're right. It's changing. There many of them. We could never have known at the beginning, and quite frankly, with a lot of the things, today it looks like we're doing all this great stuff for sustainability, but quite frankly, it's all organic. We didn't Gabe has been amazing and guided us, and our team really has been the ones. Like I said, Misty did all the tours. She would be in the villages and she'd point things out that we could do to make it better, to help, and the whole team had a voice that way. But I think moving forward, the most exciting thing, it always comes back to the people. It really does. And what we couldn't have known is that, okay, so this part we did know, Oaxaca is, as you know, is one of the poorest states in Mexico, and they perhaps the largest indigenous population and the most languages, right? And there's a lot of poverty, and we have an opportunity to change that, to help that, to assist with that. But people in Oaxaca go to the United States. Well, they used to until this new regime, and God knows what's next. But, they would pick tomatoes or grapes, or they'd work in construction, or they are barbacks and bellmen and maids in hotels. I mean, they do the jobs that nobody else wants to do because they send money home to support their family. And all you have to do is, on any given day, particular days more so, walk by a Western Union office or the hardware store that has the connection, right? And you'll see people lined up in the street with empty bags, waiting for their money to come from their son or daughter in the United States, or husband or wife, so that they can go shopping and feed the kids, right? It's crazy. But what we could never have imagined is that the work in the villages, again, organically, not because we tried to do this, it changed. Suddenly, the kids were coming home because they had a family business to help in and work in, and they could make money in Oaxaca. Or kids that had never dreamed of going to college could now go and change their lives and be an attorney or be a veterinarian. Or I use both of those examples because they're two people that came back and now live in Oaxaca and do that pro bono while they make mezcal with their family. I mean, come on. It's the most beautiful thing. And what we see in every single one of our villages is that there is a plan for succession, if you will, that there are daughters and sons that have learned the business, that has been handed down for generations, that have stepped up and are home and are making mezcal. And some of them have branched away from the family to do their own thing, but others have taken on the family business and guided it and expanded it in some cases. I'll show some pictures here. I keep saying people, and I mean it. And it's about time for me to show. Now, I had all these gorgeous pictures of families, and I couldn't. I just couldn't. I wanted to respect their privacy, but also it just makes me too emotional. But even this one, I mean, seeing one of the last times I saw Esperidion there. But Esther runs the show, Juan and Armando are very involved, and their sons are now involved. But she's clearly the boss, although she would never say that. She's also a hell of a cook. That's the best barbacoa you will ever eat. But here, you have in Las Milpas, a father and 3 sons working together that never had business. We helped them build that palenque. It was like going back to Chichicapa all over again in this remote area, but they're the ones who run the show. If you think for a second that this is a patriarchal society, think again. I know very few men in these families that would ever question or defy the law put down by the women. The women work probably harder and do the work that is absolutely essential for survival. And the men might do some of the more physical labor, but in many cases, almost most, it's becoming the woman's job, the distillation itself. It's an art form, but family members, I mean, come on, these are, you've all tasted Pechuga, and you've tasted Minero, Arroqueño, Luis Carlos, but the sisters, they make it too, and they've got their own little palenque that was their dad's, which is where it all began for us. So we have 2 different palenques making those mezcals. And then again, succession. So Luis Hijo Jr., as he's called, came home from being a veterinarian because he wanted to make mezcal. And he now is the palenquero of note at Minas. But his son is getting ready. I mean, soon will be taking on the business himself. There's Marcos. He's grown up a little bit. That little boy in the river, remember, with the burro that wanted Ron to take his picture? There he is. So, and there he is with his son, Alex. He was like next. And by the way, that's a few years old. Alex is taller than his dad now. So, and he's now going to start doing it, I mean, Rogelio, I showed you Bigote earlier. I mean, come on. That's a chicken wire and rebar suspension bridge over a raging torrent of a river, and you walk a kilometer to get out to the palenque because it's that remote, because they're still illegal, right? So anyway, the family members, and again, I got to tell you, the Zapotecs, all of the indigenous people we work with, they're the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life. They work so hard, and they don't question it. It's what they do. They love their life. They love their families. They love what they do. They make whatever they have is enough. It's mind-blowing to witness. And I'll never forget once one of the visitors said, I would like to give Faustino $500 and send him into Home Depot because everything is handmade. All the tools are handmade, everything, right? And send him to Home Depot and see what he would buy. And I said, oh, you don't need to. I know exactly what he'd buy. You do? I said, oh, yeah, very obvious to me. It's Faustino, And they said, what? What would he buy? I said, well, he would take $496 and put it under his mattress and save it for special occasion and Christmas presents. And $4 he'd go down and buy screws and bolts and nuts so he can keep making his homemade tools, but make them better. That kind of tells the story of the type of beautiful people we're working with. And I'll got to tell you, everybody in hospitality, you have not experienced true hospitality. Okay, obviously we have, but until you eat in their home and are welcomed into their home, I can't describe it to you. It is the type of hospitality that is mind-blowing and amazing. And then celebrate the people. I mean, this is our 20th anniversary, and it was the first time that many of these families had ever met each other. Some of them knew each other well, and others didn't have any idea. And then we had a couple of new families that had just come to start working with us. And this is the day that we told them about the joint venture and about their contracts. Because can you imagine going to somebody you've worked with for 20 years and saying, okay, I need you to sign a 10-year contract. It's like 22 or 3 years, some of them at that point. They're like, why? Well, why do we need a contract? It's us, it's a handshake, it's a hug. We know each other. No, this is really important. You have to trust us. Oh yeah, we trust you. Okay. I mean, if you insist, as you know, a contract in Mexico is basically a document that gives you a reason to have a discussion. It's not really that legally binding, depending on what you're, but it's important, to have that document to prove it. Right. And we made them all. We didn't make them. We asked them all to sign 10-year contracts, and they all did. And this was the day that Luis Carlos actually stood up in front of the whole group and said, we've trusted you for more than 20 years, Ron, and there's no way we're going to stop trusting you now. So if you say this is the best thing for us, then let's go. Let's do it. And this is the day that they got their fideicomiso. So when we told Pernod Ricard that they were our partners, they wanted to participate in that, which was really cool. But that was like one of the early photos of the next generation. Those are all sons and daughters of the existing palenqueros that are taking over their businesses, one from each palenque. Isn't that crazy? It's beautiful. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah. And I would just say, I'm going to leave that photo up there for my close, because I know we're going to run out of time pretty soon. So what else do you want to ask me today?
No, this been just amazing. I will just ask you, after all these years, what continues to inspire and motivate you in the hospitality industry? And I think you have shared this through all this talk, the education, sharing with people, having this purpose. You even tried to retire and you came back.
I didn't try that. I didn't try that hard.
What continues to inspire you?
I'll be short and sweet on that one, just because we have spent so much time there, and I know you probably have a couple more questions, but that group that I showed you from Bar, none of us or any of my peers, our generation, we could never have imagined how this would happen and the renaissance that would happen, and we don't take credit for it at all. If those who do shouldn't, because that's what it's about. If you continue giving, if you continue sharing, if you continue mentoring, this type of thing could evolve. We would have never imagined it could get this amazing, and that is because of the people watching this right now, and the people I get to teach, and the people I get to share with every day. The next generations behind us have taken it to a level that we couldn't have been conceived of. It's mind-blowing where it's going and where it's evolving. And what I love, I have to say, when I go to bars, when I go to bar shows, when I go to visit friends, I'm like a little kid. I got to pinch myself. I mean, I watched a 28-year-old bartender thinking, oh my God, that's so amazing. Look at them. And I'm going, here I am after all these years. And I still feel like a little kid surrounded by all these superstars. And I'm just lucky that somebody once in a while wants to hear what I have to say too. I feel so fortunate that people care, that people do that. And I feel that the single most important thing that's driving me is guiding this part of it, but also it's what I see that gives me the most optimism for the future, is that, look, anybody, as Ryan was saying in the film, really anybody can learn to make a drink. You can teach people to make drinks, but you can't teach people to be kind. You can urge them to, but you can't teach it. You can't teach them how to care. You can't teach them how to share. And I feel that we're on a path where we're returning to that. We're returning to this, and we didn't really get far away from it. We kind of, sometimes we go through these stages, and certain bars maybe go a different. It's part of the exploration. It's part of the Renaissance. It's part of learning. It's part of, throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks, and then keeping the best parts of it. But we haven't lost track, and that's the best part. Bartenders, hospitality professionals, we care, we share, and we live to make people happy. And as long as we keep doing that, then we get to make really cool drinks and tell really cool stories. Yeah. And stories like this help us share our craft and our love and passion for it with our guests, who, when they hear stories, and it's not just this, there are other great stories out there, but this is one of the great ones. I will say that, no question about it.
Wow, that's so inspiring. And to close, if you could leave the Tahana Society community with one piece of advice or anything else that you want to share, what will it be?
Wow. Okay, I have a lot of it. Let me try to condense this. What would I give to all these beautiful people for my personal advice? I mean, like, as in, like, moving forward in their careers and building their careers and so forth? Because some people here are probably, have been doing this for a long time and probably don't need my advice. I would just say this as a general thing. Sharing, I'll never stop, okay? I would say that don't ever, I mentioned it when I talked about TV versus hospitality. Don't ever step on other people. Don't ever, stab someone in the back to get higher. Just don't. Just avoid it at all costs. There's no good that can come from it, and you will deal with the karmic returns, okay? Instead, extend a hand. Help people. Guide people, lift people, bring them with you if you're seeing success. Look, we as an industry stand on the shoulders of people before us that did amazing things, and we're constantly looking back in time at the people who did things before us that gave us a chance to do what we do now. So just as we have stood on their shoulders, lift people up and let them stand on yours. Raise people up and push them forward, and they will do what you have done. Take it to a level that you couldn't have imagined. So some of the most important stuff about building your career in this business, as far as I'm concerned, first of all, work your ass off. Just work hard. And part of working hard is being honest. Don't believe your own press. Don't let it get to your head. Don't take it seriously. Take your work seriously, but don't take your success seriously. If you're honest and you work hard, people will notice. And when they notice, I'm sitting here right now. I guess somebody noticed. I don't know. I never have had a PR agency. I've never promoted myself. I just work hard, and I love my work, and that's a big part of it. Stick to your principles. Morals are important. Do not deviate from your moral beliefs, no matter what they are. And the more strict they are, the better, because you will deviate. And so if you can come back to center, it's really important. But integrity and credibility are the most important. And the minute you deviate from that, you'll never get it back. And I can honestly say that I have never compromised. I refuse. I'd rather starve. And I did. I mean, I had a lot of years that were really, really tough. And it never fazed me for a second. And that's not because I'm better. It's because I refuse to compromise. I refused to sacrifice my integrity. I refused to worry about what other people were saying. Because when somebody says you can't, yeah, they told us nobody will ever drink this smoky, nasty shit. That's what people told us about mezcal. No, yeah, really cute, Steve. That's what other spirits companies that I was consulting for, when I would whip out my flask. They thought it was really cute that I had my little flask of Tobola. And they thought, yeah, but nothing's ever going to happen with that. Are you kidding me? Come on, man. What are you, crazy? Yeah, look at it now. Fastest growing spirit category in the world. That's not me. That's a lot of us working hard together, and then all those families creating beautiful liquid. Be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't look at somebody else's success and say, why didn't I get that? Don't pay any attention. It doesn't matter. Just work hard. Keep your nose to the grindstone. Keep your head down and stay humble. I think humility is the single most dangerous. It's so important in our craft to be humble all the time. And so exercising your humility at all times will absolutely take you higher. I promise you. And I put this photo up there because a long time ago, I noticed that first day when Jimmy and I were there, I watched as Esperidion took his sandaled feet and put his big toe on the little spigot coming out of the still and pushed it from one clay jar to the next, because he was done with the hearts and was separating the first section of his 3 sections of tails. I'll tell you all about that someday. And I started noticing this. And so my close to answer that question is, don't ever assume, whether it's your team, whether it's your partners, whether it's the people that you're working with, whether it's your customers, your coworkers, anyone, humans. Don't ever assume you know what's going on at home. Don't ever assume you know what's in their head. Don't ever assume you know what's in their heart. And don't ever assume that everything's okay. Until you've walked in their shoes, there's no way you could know. So the only way, in my opinion, that you can continue to operate humility and kindness. Just assume that every person you deal with is perhaps less fortunate. Perhaps they have something. Perhaps there's an issue. Maybe not. Doesn't matter. It's not your business except to care and to give and to share. So do good and walk in other people's shoes before you, and don't judge. There's no room for judgment. So there you go. Steve.
Wow. Thank you so much. Where can we learn more from you? Where can we follow you? Where can we just...
Okay.
Do you have a book? If you don't, you have to start writing down all of these.
Yeah, I know.
It's just amazing.
I've been told that many times, and I know I need to. If Dale DeGraff tells me one more time, he goes, when are you going to write the damn book? What I was saying earlier about pinching myself, there's a perfect example. I've been best friends, business partners. Dale and I go back almost 40 years. And I swear to God, every time I stand next to Dale on stage, I have to pinch myself. It's like, God, I'm standing next to Dale DeGraff. He's the king. I can't. Don't ever lose that childlike appreciation, because as soon as it becomes jaded, you're ruined. You can, first of all, if you're interested in going to school, I highly recommend you watch the documentary, but you can go to beveragealcoholresource.com. All the information's there. You can reach out to me. This is easy. It's Del Maguey. And Maguey, if you don't know this, it is the term that we use in Oaxaca and other states for the agave. If you say agave, these days things have evolved, but if you said agave, even to this day in the villages in Oaxaca, that's blue agave. Agave is the one that those people use up in Jalisco to make tequila, right? Maguey is all the other ones. So serious, I'm not kidding. Puebla too. So Maguey. So Maguey Geek, because my company was AKA Wine Geek, AKA as in also known as, because yes, I worked in wine and I still work in wine and I love wine, but wine was part of my career, and it always drove me crazy that people. I remember in the early days I was introduced as the spirits guy who brings a wine tasting regimen to spirits or some crazy enough. Like, why? It's just how we do spirits. It's different, Anyway, Maguey at Gmail. So Maguey,
Okay.
Maguey, geek, Geek, Maguey Geek at Gmail. You can find me. You can ask me questions. You can communicate with me. You can get a dialogue going with me anytime you want. You can go to beveragealcoholresource.com and you will find all kinds of things going on there. I highly recommend you go to the link, which will take you also. You can go to ktffilms.com. That's Don Hardy's website and his company. They're the ones who put this documentary together and did an amazing job. And then I would say find me at a festival, because I tend to show up at Tales of the Cocktail, BCB, Jabu, Athens Bar Show, London Cocktail Week, just to name a few. I tend to show up there and stage really cool bartender type events because I can't help myself. I love to have that community around me and do special things. And it's always educationally based. Everything I do is educationally based. AKA Wine Geek is back in operation. I am not consulting. I'm doing education. And I do work with some brands that I've taken an interest in, whether I'm on the board or as an advisor, that you can find me there as well. If you see anything at straydoggen.com, that's something I'm involved in. Jay Rieger and Co. I'm involved in. Uncle Wakely's ginger beer with Carl. I'm involved in that. There's just again, it's like it's the mentoring thing. These are brilliant people that I've become friends with, that have been students or colleagues in one way or another, that I believed in what they were doing and got involved. And so you can find me through those. Like at BCB, you'll see Stray Dog and Rieger are both doing events. I'll be at them. So, if you want to find me, that's a good way to find me also. And if you see those brands, or Uncle Wakely's, same, you'll see me involved there. There are some other things that I'm working on that I probably shouldn't be talking about just yet, but we make Greek spirits, traditional Greek spirits like Cipro and Ouzo. And I'm working with some other colleagues on various different agave projects and so forth. I went from, maybe I'll retire, to, I can't. So now I'm so busy. I don't know if I've ever worked this hard, but I sure do enjoy it. I love my work. It's not work to me. It's work, but it's not. It's collaborating with brilliant and beautiful people, empowering them, trying to be there to offer advice if I can help. So.
Yeah. Well, Steve, thank you so much for sharing your time, your stories, your passion. I have to say that listening to your journey and the way you speak about people, culture, and hospitality has been incredibly inspiring. It's rare to meet people who have shaped an industry while staying so grounded in community and generosity. So thank you so much. I feel really, really grateful that we have had the opportunity to learn from you today. And that you chose to share your experience with Tahana Society community. Thank you so much for inspiring all of us and reminding us why this industry is so special. And thank you to everyone who joined us from around the world. We hope to see you at the next Tahana Society Expert Talk. Don't forget to continue exploring everything that we have available inside the Tahana Society app. This community is for you. And we have from resources to community conversations. We also have running club for people in the industry and entrepreneurial programs. So thank you so much, everyone. Take care and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure. I really appreciate the time. As I said, it's all about sharing, and you just gave me an opportunity to share, which I really appreciate. And thanks especially to everybody who takes the time to listen to this live or later. It's what you do every single day that inspires me. And that's why I do this, because I love what you do, what we do. I truly do. So for what you do every single day, if you're dealing with imposter syndrome, if you're dealing with, oh, I'm not good enough to do this, if you're dealing with, oh, I'll never amount to that, don't go there. Don't do that to yourself. You believe in what you can do, and who knows where you might end up, you know? There are opportunities everywhere. And if you stay humble and you stay kind and you keep giving back, it will happen. It's inevitable. And either way, you'll always sleep well and you'll live a very happy life.
Thank you so much, Steve. And see you, everyone.
Steve Bay.
Bye.